Thankful that you joined us here today. Good morning, everyone. We're so thankful that you joined us here today for the Alabama Minority Vendor Conference's highlight series. Today's session will be about Marketing Plan 101, Target Marketing and Crafting Your Message. Today's session is number 2 in a 4-part series. So we heard from Holly on Monday, and she talked to us about trucking. And so today, Austin will talk to us about marketing. And then if you join us on August 22nd, we'll hear from Letitia Isbell on winning corporate contracts, as well as on August 27th, we'll talk to Faith Bridges about empowering leadership. On Monday, so we hope that you'll join us for the Alabama Minority Vendor Conference on September 5th and 6th. As I said, today is number 2 in a 4-part series, but Austin is also giving us part 1 of a 2-part series. The second part of his talk will happen during the conference on September 5th for our pre-conference activities. As part of joining this webinar today, you have access to Austin's promo code, which is Austin, AUSTIN, and it allows you 50% off of conference registration. So we hope you will take advantage of that. After the webinar today, we will have Q&A with Austin, and the way you can do that is there's a button at the bottom that says Q&A, and you can put your questions in there, and you can put them along during the chat as well, and we'll answer them at the end. So I'll introduce our trainer, and then we'll get started. So our trainer for today is Austin Goble of the Catalyst Center. Austin is a coffee-drinking, crazy sock-wearing, dog-loving entrepreneur, nonprofit professional, and Alabama native who has a real passion for people. His career spans from government and public affairs to small business and entrepreneurial development. Austin currently serves as the director of the Reach Women's Business Center, a project of the Catalyst Center for Business and Entrepreneurship. In this role, Austin leads efforts to train, coach, and provide resources to women entrepreneurs in Central and South Alabama. Outside of professionally minding your business, you can usually find him repotting plants, reading a good book, or going on adventures with his husband and 2 goofy dogs. Austin, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. As Jennifer said, I am Austin Goble with the Reach Women's Business Center, and today we're talking about small business marketing plans. And we're going to dig into part 1, or as I like to call it, Marketing Plan 101, and that's talking target market and crafting your message. We're going to move pretty quickly through this morning just to make sure that we stay on time. But as Jennifer mentioned, if you will, just put any questions that you have in the Q&A section, and we will get to those there at the end. So the first thing that we want to talk about this morning is a target market. And everybody kind of asked this question, what is a target market? And so a target market is a segment of potential customers who are more likely to buy a product or service from you. So what we always dig into is that not everybody in the world is going to be your client. Everybody has the potential to be your client. But at the end of the day, there is a subgroup of people that are most likely to need or want your product or service. And so that is going to be who our target market is. And target markets are important to establish because you can tailor your products accordingly, and you can also ensure you're only spending your time and advertising budget marketing to people who will actually benefit from what you're selling. And so what that means is that, and I always like to give this analogy of a target, right? So if you've got a world-class archer and you have put that archer in a stadium full of people and they know where the target is, they can see it, they're going to hit the bullseye every time because they're just that good. Well, when you turn off the lights, then they are less likely to hit that target, right? Because they can no longer see the end goal. They can no longer see who they're supposed to, what they're supposed to be reaching. It's the same with your business. If you are kind of just taking shots in the dark with your marketing, you're wasting your time and you're wasting your marketing dollars when you could be focused on those that are most likely going to purchase your product based on their need or their desire. Okay, so that's why it's important to dig into a target market. So when we're talking about who your target market is, again, plot twist, it's not going to be everyone. We have to find our corner. We're going to define a portion of a subcategory of people. We've talked about why. And then you can have more than one target market. I do want to say that. And because some people come to me and they say, well, I have three different products or I offer three different service packages, and those are not built for the same group of people. So you have three different target markets potentially. That's okay. Often people are really stressed about that. It's okay to develop out the target market for each of those products or services because you may market to them differently, you may talk to them differently, you may find them in different places and engage with them in different ways. So that is perfectly acceptable. One of the examples that I have too is that if you are going to go into business and you're saying, okay, I'm going to work in the health and beauty industry. Well, if you want to talk about a salon, they can offer a wide variety of services, right? So salons often offer tanning, waxing, facials, massage, and other various treatments. But then if you want to take a subcategory, right, and you say, okay, I want to focus on hair. And then you could say, okay, now with this hair, I really want to focus in on doing special events. I want to do formals. I want to do weddings. I want to do, receptions, special events, all of those things. I really want to dig into that subcategory. And so that's going to define what you do. Or you could do types of hair, right? Or you could be more into doing color treatment over actually doing kind of, cuts or styles or whatever. And so if you focus too broadly, you're not going to be able to fund a strong marketing message on a smaller budget. And if you're a small business owner, likely you're probably not coming up with a huge marketing budget at this time. So you also need to be relevant, and you're not relevant to everyone. And that's the reality. Our businesses are not going to be relevant to everyone because there's going to be items that just don't matter to other people. And then, I've used several analogies, but I'm like 100 watt light bulb is going to light up a room, but 100 watt laser is going to cut through steel. So there's just a difference in how we're focusing our energy. Um, and so we're going to start this morning by identifying our target market. All right. And there are various things that could go into this. So we're going to talk about some demographics. We're going to like age, gender, geographic location. We're going to talk about hobbies and skills. We're going to talk about spending habits, buying power, and your clients' even opportunities or goals. So the first thing I want to talk about this morning is demographics. And so those could be different things. It could be important to know your target market's age. It could be important to understand the gender that the product or service is most likely going to speak to. It could be education. So that could be education level. It could be the type of educational background that they have. So you could say, okay, well, they have an education in architecture, and that's why this architectural development software is going to be important to them, right? It could be income level. It could be their family life. It could be their geographic location. And I always tell people that often geographic location, as in where you locate your business, is not your secret sauce, but understanding the geographic location of your clients is important. So if I'm selling ski gear, I'm probably not selling it in Alabama, right? Because unless it's water ski. But if I'm talking snow skis, we're not going to make a sale here as often as we would somewhere like Colorado. So thinking about the geographic location and how it makes sense for your client. Also, buying habits. We're going to talk about our role. So what is the role in the household or even in the company? Like who's most often going to buy that out of your clients? And I say even in the company because often we think about this in the business to customer range, but there is also business to business sales depending on what kind of business you have. And the CEO may not be who you go to buy that printer and the printing service, right? That's probably not the person. There's probably somebody designated within that company to take on those requests. And so that is the person that you need to make friends with. That is your client. It is not the CEO of the company. Now, for some things, it might be. And so really thinking through who is the person responsible for this. Frequency is just how often they're going to need or want your product or service. That could be weekly, daily, monthly, annually. It could be once every 5 years. It just depends on the kind of product that you have. Online, mobile, offline. That's just really about where we want to shop, right? Do they want to shop online on a website? Do they want a mobile app or something that's mobile friendly to be able to shop on their phone? Or do we still prefer a brick and mortar location that they can walk into and engage with you there? Social proof. So when we talk about social proof, we really want to dig into kind of is there an expectation, right, within the circles that they're in, within the spaces that they live in, the communities that they're in? Are there certain things that we might call this keeping up with the Joneses, but that's not necessarily true. It could just be kind of the um, group expectation that happens there. And that could be important for your business if we understand that. Psychographics, we want to talk about things that are like attitudes, their values, their lifestyle, their personality, their interests and hobbies. And I'm going to go on to persona types because these all tie in together. So persona types that we might want to see if they're competitive, if they're spontaneous, are they methodical or humanistic? And these two categories really come into play when we start thinking about how we're going to engage with people. So if I understand the attitudes, values, and lifestyles of someone, then I understand how I can connect with them or the things that they'll respond well to. If I understand the persona types, then I know how to talk to them and I know how to engage them. So for instance, if I know that my audience is a very competitive group of people, then maybe I make the social media posts that I put out there a competition. So I say, okay, you're going to like, share, and follow. And the first person that invites 20 people to this page is going to win a trip to Hawaii, right? So if we have those kinds of competitions, or if we say, oh, you're going to get a 25% off coupon, but it only goes to this person, or buy one, get one free or something, we want to create a game out of it. If they're competitive, if they're spontaneous, then maybe you have flash sales and you never tell them when they're going to happen. If they're methodical, then maybe you walk them through the process of why your product or service is really important. And this is how valuable it is in a company or in your home. So just thinking through that. And then, humanistic, we might need to really get down on an empathetic level. I always tell people, and we're going to get to this soon too, but if we're selling a life-saving medical product, we probably don't want to come off as sarcastic because that's not going to be the tone that people are going to be expecting in that realm. But on the flip side, we've all seen those like Wendy's Twitter accounts where they are sarcastic in their, subtweeting other brands. Well, that might make sense in that space because their clients are interested in that. So just thinking through the space that you're in and the ways that your clients want to be talked to. All right, we're going to do an example. And so what we want to do is we want to take all of that information that I just mentioned, and we want to build what's called a customer avatar or a customer profile. So this is Max Cash. Max is the father of two teenage daughters and a younger son. He's resident of an upper middle class suburb of Metropolis in a 5-bedroom home that he bought 4 years ago. Max drives a 2-year-old Mercedes S-Class. He is an iPhone guy, but mostly just for his business calls and email. He's 51 years old. He's the owner of Cash Financial Planning. He has a BBA in finance and an MBA. He is married to golf. He's obsessed with the golf. His office is covered in golf memorabilia and pictures of him playing golf. He enjoys reading the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg Business Week, and his local newspaper. All right. There's a lot that this profile is going to tell you about Max. So you can already see that he's a family man. You can see that he enjoys golf. You can see that this is the kind of business owner he is. You can see his educational background. You know his age. You know the type of media that he likes to consume. You know that he prefers probably to talk on the phone or work through email because that's all he's doing with his phone. So he's not going to be shopping around online. So that's not the person that you need to engage mobilely. So Max is completely fictitious, right? So this whole scenario is fictitious, but that's what you're going to do is you're going to sit down and think about what is the most likely client? What is the most likely information that's going to happen based on what I understand about my target market? And then we're also going to do a profile for Max's business. So Cash Financial Planning has 18 staff members. They own their own office building. It's a 15-minute commute for Max, so that might be important. They have an annual turnover of 4.5 million, and that's service-based revenue. So there is no IT. His assistant is responsible. Um, there is $4,000 per month spent on industry-specific software for current financial data. Some features are underutilized, and servers and systems are outdated and mismatched. The backup systems are archaic and have never been tested. A nightmare waiting to happen, right? So if I own an IT company, or I own or I'm providing business support in IT, then I can look at this and say, oh, well, I already know that we're going to have to come in, outfit this with better systems, and we're probably going to want to, talk about what kind of cybersecurity is in place. And I'm betting his assistant would be happy to hand that off to someone else. And then $4,000 per month on specific software for current financial data. So we see that there are some features that are unutilized in that financial planning software. And so what we would want to do, if I'm a software company that has this package, maybe I come in and say, wait, let me sell you something that makes more sense for your company based on what I'm seeing here. That doesn't work for you. So understanding the types of businesses that you're going to be selling to, if you're a business to business sales company, then you're going to want to take a look at that and understand how you can best tailor your solutions to specific companies. Okay. And then we're also look at Angela Assistant. So we mentioned that she is the person in charge of the IT, the backup systems, all of that. She's 29. She's a personal assistant. She has a bachelor's degree in mass communications. She is single. Personal assistant, though, is probably not the right job title because she is Max's right hand. She's thriving in a 2-bedroom apartment with her roommate and cat Sprinkles. She travels by train to work each day for about 30 minutes. She's super organized and well dressed. She has great, huge energy. She runs the whole place at work. She's always texting and on social media, makes great money, but she is a shopaholic. She's got $4,000 of credit card debt. She does daily gym sessions. She's big on Netflix, big on brunch. She's got a great social life. Like I said, we're on Netflix where you're consuming online beauty, fashion, celebrity gossip blogs, and social media. So Angela's got a different scope of interests and ways that you can engage with her than Max Cash does. So, and she's got a whole different living system in place. So if I want to engage, then I might need to be marketing in these beauty, fashion, and celebrity gossip blogs. I may need to be doing some more social media work. I may need to work with things like Netflix, but not even just Netflix or Hulu, where you can put some local commercials. It might be pricey, but then think about, are there podcasts that she's listening to? Are there ways that, okay, that $4,000 of credit card debt? Well, if I'm a debt consolidation company, then I know that that might be the way to talk to her is, oh, well, she's a young woman. That's not a huge amount of credit card debt, so we can work with that. And we would be able to kind of market to her in that way. We also know clearly that she travels by train to work each day. So maybe that's where we do some marketing as well, is that, subway stations do have those spaces. Now, I know that we're in Alabama, so subways are not the thing, but thinking through where your clients spend time is important. And that's what I'm trying to drive home here. So we know that we've created 3 different profiles, customer profiles here. This is not going to be all encompassing, but it is an opportunity for you to start to understand the kinds of people that you're going to be marketing to and how they might like to be marketed to and in what spaces. So going back to Max Cash real quick, just in case I missed this part. I could say the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg Business Week and his local newspaper. That means that I might need to engage with Max by using ads in those spaces, by maybe even taking an article from one of those, putting it in my newsletter and an email and say, have you read this? This is what we believe in, and this is why my company offers this solution, yada, da, 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 right? So understanding, again, where they get their information, how they like to get their information is only going to provide you with ways to better market your services. So once we've kind of captured our target market, we're going to move into this extra portion here, which is called crafting your message. When we talk about crafting our message, the first thing we're going to do is identify our objective. What do you want your audience to do once they come across your message? Okay. So that could be, and it's funny, if you build an ad in Facebook, say, They're actually going to walk you through these things. What is your expectation? Do you want to drive traffic back to your website? Do you want to drive traffic to your page on social media? This is just using social media, but whatever medium you are utilizing, these are the things you got to think about. Do you want them to request more information? Do you want them to subscribe to upcoming email blasts from you? Do you want them to request a quote or request a 30-minute meeting with you? Whatever the case is, you've got to understand your objective and you've got to understand how to communicate to them, hey, I want you to go do this thing. It could be like a learn more or visit now or register today. There's always a call to action. And then we want to think about our style. So we want to establish the tone with the client. Remember your target audience because that's going to tell you what kind of tone you need to establish with your clients. You're going to focus on how you're different than your competitors. That's that unique value, your secret sauce. And as I mentioned before, your secret sauce is not going to be your location in the sense of, oh, well, I'm the only business like me located in this area. You might be the only business like you located in this area today. That might not be true next month or next year or in the next few years. I always use the example that, Walgreens is right there on the corner of Happy and Healthy, right? But CVS moves in across the street. You see it all the time. Your competition can move in above you, below you, next door, whatever the case is. So don't write that off as, oh, my secret sauce is I'm the only one doing this. Well, you may be the only one today. And you also don't want your price to be your secret sauce because low prices, depending on your target market, if you don't understand them, a low price might not resonate with them, or you might be selling yourself short. Just as on the flip side of that, we don't want to make our prices too high because then we can't compete with our competitors. But those things are not your unique value, but the things that can be is your unique experience, your combined experience of your staff, your attention to detail, your customer service is exceptional. All of those things could go into what your unique value is. So just think about that. What is the secret sauce or what is the thing your company does that nobody else does? If you don't know what that is yet, dig into that, but also take a look at your competitors' reviews on like Google and Facebook and depending on what kind of business you're in, it could be in several different spaces like Yelp or TripAdvisor, whatever the case is. But you want to dig into those, see what kind of feedback they're getting, and then apply that feedback to your own business. Like, oh, they're not doing this well, but I know that I can. And then you want to tell your customers that. And then you also want to focus on the perspective of your audience. So that being said, if I'm selling that life-saving medical device, I want my audience to understand that I went through this too, and that's why we developed this life-saving product, is because we couldn't save the person that I cared about. So now we're going to help save your loved one, or we want to be there for you, right? That's going to resonate with people. So that's why it's important to understand that tone, but we also want to establish emotional connection. Even if you're selling a product that's not emotional, you want to be able to identify with their issue. Going back to Max Cash, right? He liked to play golf. Why was that important to understand? Well, if I'm talking to Max about that IT solution, or if I'm talking to Angela about that IT solution, I can say, hey, you've got a lot on your plate. This gives you more time, to focus on those other sides of the business and less on this one thing that is not your skill set. Angela's going to be like, great. So she takes it to Max. Well, if I'm marketing straight to Max, I might say, hey, this software solution is going to give you more time to be on the golf course and less time in your office trying to figure out why these reports are not ran correctly, right? Because you're going to have a better solution, a better IT solution, a better software solution. So understanding how they think, how they act, how they click, that's how you're going to be able to get your message across. All right. You also want to tell a story. So we want to utilize testimonials when possible. Telling a story about how your products or services help solve the client's problem is going to resonate with people who want some proof, right? They want to be able to see the receipts. You should be able to teach people about your brand or product before that you try to make an actual sale. So consider those commercials you've seen. How often is it that you really see them trying to make a sale? We know they're selling us a product. we know they're trying to get us to buy that service, or they're trying to get us to buy that toy that our kids want, right? But we need to take a step back and think about they don't really sell us on it, in the sense that they're not saying, hey, this is 22.99 and you should come and buy it today, and this is where you buy it, da, 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 da. And some of that's included, but what they do is they tell us a story. They have a really emotional commercial. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I think it's Coca-Cola that does one about Christmas time every year that just sends everybody into tears, right? And that is exactly what I'm talking about, that they establish emotional connection, they get you bought into the storyline, or they give you a testimonial and you're like, oh my gosh, like that's amazing. And then you get to the end and they're like, hey, you can learn more here, or this product's only this much money. And you're like, okay, that's worth it because I understand now from a different perspective. So all of that to say, we want to tell a story. We want to give our solutions to clients in a matter of fact, empathetic delivery. And we want to kind of do this in a way that we see commercials, frame it to the sense of, I'm going to tell you this story. I'm going to get you really bought in. I'm going to make sure you understand everything about my company. And then when you're really a fan, I'm going to come back to you and say, now, wouldn't you like to be part of our client community? Okay. So think through how that best fits your business. The great thing is I am here and my team is here to help advise you on that. So we're going to give you some contact information, but feel free to reach out if you're struggling with any of this. Now we've set our target market. Now we're working on crafting our message. And so we understand some basic things. Back to now, how are we going to deliver this to our clients? The first question we have to ask ourselves is, do we understand our target market? I know we've already talked about this today, but it's so critical. You've got to remember those customer profiles we're going to spend some time building, and then we're going to think about where do they get their information. So if you're taking notes today, make sure that this target market point comes first. And then I want you to read it like 3 times and make sure that that is as narrow as you can get that target market, because it's going to help you through the second step, which is thinking through what our objective is for this message, thinking through how we're going to tell that story, and what we're going to utilize as far as tone and method of delivery, because now that's what we're getting into now, is that method of delivery. So, but we have to understand those things at first. So there's a few different methods of delivery. We're going to start with social media. Social media includes Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, also known as X. Social media, I always like to tell people, don't spend all of your time on all of these channels, because you're going to spread yourself thin. You're not going to be able to do this particularly well, and you're going to get burned out really quickly. So what I prefer you do is take a look at this and say, where is my target market hanging out? If I have spent time doing some research and digging and understanding the people that I'm selling to, then I know maybe that they spend more time on Facebook than they do on Instagram, that they spend more time on Pinterest than they do LinkedIn, right? So we want to take a second to think through where they're hanging out. And then we want to think through, based on that information, how many of these channels can we actually keep up at one time? If you are a brand new small business owner, or even if you've been in business for a while, the reality is that you may be the person wearing multiple hats in your company. If you're the one and only employee, all the way to you've got 30, 40 employees, you still may be wearing several hats. And so thinking through who can keep up with this and how well can you do this. If you know that you can do 2 social media channels well, and you know that your clients are hanging out on Facebook and LinkedIn, then that's where you're going to want to spend your time. And I do want to give LinkedIn a shout out here, because while it gets kind of written off, if you're doing business to business sales, or even if you're doing business to client, those people are business professionals, but they're also regular everyday people. So it's not a bad place to market to folks, depending on what your product or service is. But also, that's the other thing. Think through your product or service. Where does it make sense for you to be? If I'm running an accounting firm, it may not make sense for me to be on Instagram. Now, if you really have the energy and the time and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to make it a fun, kind of spoof account for our company on Instagram, you could totally do that. I'm not saying that you couldn't, and it might be effective. I'm just saying, in the beginning, spend your time where it's going to be most impactful. And if you've done your target market research, then you understand where it's going to be most impactful. And we have whole workshops on social media, so feel free to reach out and we can dig into some of that as well. I do want to go through some of these channels real quick because these are some of the most popular. Facebook has 81% of adult Americans have Facebook. There are multiple ad options. You can do video ads. You can do the carousel images where you kind of scroll through those. You can do customer offers. You have lead generation page likes, event responses, stories. There's so many tools that you can use. And Meta Business Suite now lets you run analytics from Facebook for Facebook and Instagram. You can also do all of these actions on the back end and cross using Meta Business Suite. And that is completely free to you. The only thing that you're paying for are the ads. So if you decide to run some ads, you will have to put money behind that. Oh. And then Instagram. So 60% of Instagram's over 1 billion users are under the age of 30. Same advertisement options as Facebook. You could do all of that through the background on Meta Business Suite. You can do Instagram Reels and shopping features. Hashtags are king on Instagram. And the reason that is because so often Instagram users do this thing where they go back and they say there's like almost a For You page. It's the Explore option on Instagram. And so you can go through and see your interest, right? So if I'm really big into travel, specifically, I'm really big into travel to the Caribbean, right? I'm going to be able to go in and click on hashtags that identify with that travel. I'm one of those people that I think I said this, reading a good book. I have a bookstagram. So there's things where I share what I'm currently reading. There's a whole online community for that. And so there are hashtags that we use so that we can find other people that are doing the same thing. So hashtags are really critical because they're going to pull your content in to these groupings of posts that identify with people's interests and likes. So Instagram, big on hashtags. And then again, Meta Business Suite. There are pay-per-click ads. And so what this is advertisers pay a small fee per user click, usually through a search engine like Google Ads. And businesses make $2 on average for every $1 they spend on pay-per-click ads. There is some statistical research out there that says that pay-per-click ads are one of the most beneficial types of advertising that you can do for your business. I always tell people, if it makes sense for you, or if you think it makes sense for you, give it a chance. If it's not working the way that you thought it was going to work, then kind of readjust on your sales on the back end and go a different direction. There's plenty of opportunity to do that. And all that to say, just because something doesn't work doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It just means that we might need to dig into that target market a little bit more, or we need to dig into maybe times that we're posting, because that's another thing. Just because your target market's on Instagram doesn't mean they're going to see your post. There are algorithms and all this stuff on the back end that we need to understand. And it's the same with some of these other advertising options. So don't get discouraged. That's why you have resource partners like us that you can lean on to understand more about what you're looking at. All right. Now, mobile advertising. So mobile phones are, as we know, the key communication devices that we have today. You can do almost anything from your phone. And that is also the reason that your website needs to be formatted for mobile use, is so that people can access and utilize your website, or if you have online products or services, you want to make sure that those are as mobile friendly as possible. So if we're talking about mobile advertising, though, we're going to talk about things like mobile display ads, mobile search ads, mobile videos, mobile app ads, social media ads for mobile devices only. All right, so when we talk about display ads and search ads, that could be advertisements that you were running in on a website. It could be that's more specifically formatted for mobile. It could be mobile videos. You want to talk about, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. So those are social media outlets as well. But it could be, when we talk about mobile videos, if you're sending a video to clients, maybe you have a text service that you're utilizing for marketing. So you want to make sure that all of those things are formatted and sized correctly to deliver, not take up a bunch of space. It could be mobile app ads. So I don't know if you've seen these things where you go and play one mobile game and then it's advertising another mobile game. And you have to do that advertising to get this free thing, or you see the advertising every time you log in. There are social apps that do the same thing. So that's an opportunity. It also could be social media ads for mobile devices only. So there are some social media channels that you can utilize, specifically mobile ads on those social media channels. So it may not show them if they're logged in on a desktop, but we know that our specific target market utilizes their mobile phone most often, right? So that's how we're going to deliver that. Or it's size specifically for mobile. All of that to say, there's lots of mobile advertising units you can use, but make sure that it makes sense. And you also don't want to get up clients' nerves. I have to give that out there because what happens is that you can easily blow up your advertising on any of these mediums and drive somebody crazy, and we don't want to do that. Print advertising, that's newspapers, magazines, brochures, flyers, anything that you have and can hold physically typically, or it's up on a billboard or a handheld option. So newspapers, magazines, brochures, flyers, all of that. I would say think about your client again. Brochures and flyers can always be helpful, but if you're putting up posters, make sure you're putting them up in a place that makes sense for your clients. If you're doing newspaper advertising, okay, are your clients reading the newspaper? Because not everybody, but I'm 29 years old. I rarely pick up a physical newspaper. Now, I will read the news online. So if you're doing advertising, maybe think about digital advertising in some of those news. Now, if you're advertising to my grandparents, or even to my mom, they still read the newspaper. So you might want to, put that in the newspaper. Magazines, think about industry specific magazines or interest specific magazines. So if it makes sense that your target market is going to be reading those and consuming that information, absolutely do that. And the great thing is now, even with newspapers and magazines, often they're going to give you a package that allows you to do print and digital. So you can combine that and get more bang for your buck. That's not everywhere, but it could be beneficial. Broadcast advertising, that's television, radio, podcast, and music apps, Spotify, Pandora, and Apple Podcasts. If you are a podcast consumer, you know that there are ads on those podcasts. And especially if something's new, but it's really niche and of an interest area to your target market, get in there because you might be able to secure a sponsorship at a much lower rate on an early blooming podcast that actually ends up expanding and becomes really successful. Even some of the larger ones will still take on some smaller sponsorships that may allow you to get in there and be on the either they mention you in their podcast or they mention you in their special. A lot of people have these Patreons now where you start off with you're listening to the podcast as a regular consumer, but then now they have a paid wall that maybe it's $5 and then you get special episodes. Well, you could be part of those special episodes. And so really digging into that niche group of people. Radio's not gone. People listen to the radio all the time still. It changes just as much as everything else does, but there's still a place for radio, especially if you're trying to do a business and community impact or something. Absolutely. And television, local television. And what I tell people is think back to that geographic location conversation, and that's for print and broadcast. So I am from a small town in northern Alabama, where for the longest time, the best you could get still was dial-up internet where I lived, right? So, but you could get satellite television, and we still were consuming print items. So that was brochures, flyers, and newspapers and magazines. So it was important for the businesses that were trying to engage with our household. They would understand we need to mail something out. We need to have something physical, and maybe we need to focus on television ads or radio ads because it's not going to make the most sense for us to really focus in on social media or mobile, that kind of thing, because we had no cell phone reception. And we don't want to drive people to this high traffic internet platform because we also know that there is no internet reception that's going to be strong enough to back that up. We still have huge gaps of this country that are rural, and so they don't have great access to that digital format. So just think through that as well. Community signage. So I mentioned billboards before. Digital signage, that could be the airports, doctor's office, etc. You see them all the time. They have those TVs set up and they're doing some local advertising there as well. Or if they don't have TVs, but they have like a sign or a poster up. Transit ads, again, that could be beneficial. We do have some transit systems across the state. So if you're here in Alabama, then that's going to make sense. Sports venues, that could be all the way from your kid is playing T-ball up to the collegiate level, right, in the state. So think through that, or it could be even bigger. I don't know if y'all got NFL advertising money, but if you do, that might be an option. And then street ads. You've seen the ones on park benches or bus benches. You've seen the ones that are just kind of set up on the sidewalk there. They're even advertising on trash cans these days. So there are multiple options as well for you to put your product out there if it makes sense for you in that way. And then messages. So that could be traditional direct mail. And I talked about why traditional direct mail might still be important. Could be e-blasts and newsletters. And it could be text message advertisements, which we also mentioned. So there are some messaging opportunities there as well. If you are plugged into the current election, you know that they're utilizing a lot of text message advertising. They're utilizing a lot of e-blast, right? And they're probably utilizing some traditional direct mail as well. We haven't gotten those, but either way, you're seeing multi-messaging platforms being utilized for this campaign, and you can do the same thing for your business. All right, that is all that I have on the topic today. Like I said, that was a fast overview. But do we have any questions?
So, Austin, there aren't any questions in the chat just yet. If you guys
Okay.
want to start putting them in the chat, I do have a question while we're waiting for that.
Sure.
You talked about the persona audiences, right? And so,
Mhm.
as I was paying attention to those, I was wondering, how do you how do you figure out what that persona type for your business is exactly, and how do you bump into those people? Are they networking mixers? Like, how do you do this? How do you do that research behind who they are to kind of, that investigative work?
So there's a few ways that you can approach that actually. The first thing I always tell people is think about why you started the business and who you started the business for, because 9 times out of 10, there was some problem solution that happened. And you said, you know what, I could do this, or I could do this better. And it may have resulted from a existing client in an old company's issue. It could have resulted from you as a consumer encountering an issue. And so think about you or that person that you were interacting with and start there. And then it's going to take a little bit of research as well. I also tell people when I mentioned going to look at your competitor, also look at your competitor's feedback from their clients. You can start building that portfolio based on what is the feedback that they were getting. Who were their clients that are, even if it's good feedback for the competitor, what is that client like? Is that also your client? That may help as a baseline. And then you can do some surveying as well. If you have an existing group of people, so say that you know already primarily your target market's going to be women. We'll start polling the women that you have and see what resonates with them. Start asking some really intensive questions. And I know people look at me and they're like, that's crazy. I'm not going to do that. Well, if you do, that's how you're going to dig into that target market and get some information back. And honestly, Google is your best friend. I promise you, Google is your best friend. And so if you just start plugging in some of this information and asking Google those questions, you start to get some things back. And I guess what I want to drive home is that there's no one size fits all way to enter this. So it could be that you do the polling. It could be that you just go in and do some competitor research. But it also could be you could put it out on social media as well and kind of get some feedback there. Your friends may be your target market. You may have designed this specifically because of their needs, or your parents, or your coworker, your existing coworker right now, or your neighbor down the street. And so start there and build a profile based on that. But if you yourself would have been your ideal consumer, then you've already got that built-in information. And then what I would say is adjust your sales. So if it's not working, if the profile is still not feeling niche enough, then go back to the drawing board. But also reach out to us because we can help you. I found that 9 times out of 10 people know their target market. They just haven't said it out loud yet.
Got you. So there is one question in the Q&A. It's from Cody.
Uh-huh.
What do you consider to be the three must-have tools for any small business to utilize for marketing overall?
I would say at least one social media channel is going to be a tool that you have, a creative software of some sort. So I use Canva religiously. I used to use InDesign and Adobe products quite frequently when I worked more in PR and marketing. But now that I moved out of that, I would just say you need something. And Canva's very user friendly and it's cost effective. So definitely some software where you can design some templates, put out some social media graphics, some flyers, and I mean, you can do everything in Canva. This presentation was created in Canva. So that definitely you need to have a social media channel identified. And the third thing that you can do, and you could do this digitally or you could do this on paper. It depends on what kind of person you are and how you best, but you have got to have some organizational option. So is that going to be, you've got to schedule out your marketing. You need to sit down and say, this is when I'm going to go. I'm actually going to go one more thing here, and that's a brand kit. So when I talk about a brand kit, this is going to be, I know what fonts that I'm using. I know what color scheme I'm using. I have my logo. I know the tone of my brand. This is how I want to speak to people. You need all of those things, and that's going to make you successful, because what I hope is that all of us eventually or can hand this off to somebody that is their bread and butter, that they can absolutely do the marketing for us. But you want to make that transition as seamless as possible. So I would say those are the top tools that you need. And the great thing is, if you join us at the conference, we're actually going to dig into some tools and tricks. And so we'll go into more detail there.
Fantastic, fantastic. And so, Austin, one last question before we part.
Yeah.
Speak to how the Catalyst Center can help entrepreneurs with support for these types of things. And what does that cost look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Catalyst is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we say we have a big heart for small business and provide workshops and coaching for all businesses, no matter what stages you're in. We mean it. And so that could mean that you need one-on-one coaching with a subject matter expert. So if you have questions about this marketing workshop today, you might talk to me, you might talk to one of our marketing coaches that is a subject matter expert, and they own their own marketing business or they work in a marketing firm. The same with accounting, the same with HR, on and on and on. And then we have our workshops, which is very similar to like what we're doing today. And so we do those very regularly, and those are typically delivered online. And even when they're in person, there will be some sort of hybrid format. And that's on a variety of topics as well. So that's either taught by one of our staff members who are all subject matter experts in various areas, or it's going to be taught by one of those subject matter experts that volunteer their time. As far as cost, there isn't any. So the only time that you're going to pay anything, if we do a live event with like food, then we might charge a little bit, because that's one thing that all the grants and things that we do to bring in additional money to offer this to you for free, that's one thing they don't typically cover is food. And so that's where we start sticking a price tag on things. So if it's in person, there may be, a small $5, $10 fee, but I promise you that it's worth it. And those are excellent networking opportunities as well. So we're literally here to provide you a shoulder to lean on in this small business journey, because we know it's hard. And some days that may just be you need a pep talk, and that's okay. If you need to schedule a session for a pep talk, I've had those before, but we're really here to be your one-stop shop.
That is fantastic, Austin. Thank you so much. Uh-oh, we have another question in the box. 1 second.
Perfect.
All right, this one comes from Felicia. Thank you for this informative webinar. And you are just down the street. Oh, she just wanted to let us know she's close, that she's close by. So that's fantastic, Felicia. Please make sure to take advantage of these resources. And we appreciate the Minority Vendor Program for bringing together all of these TA providers to support small businesses in Alabama. So Austin, thank you again so much for your time today. We really hope everyone on here will join us for the conference. And don't forget, if you use Austin's code, AUSTIN is his name, You get 50% off your registration. We need to see you because I'm excited about part two. Part two is going to be a deep dive, and I know I'm going to have my laptop and my paper out trying to work on what my marketing, my branding is. So I'm excited about that. So again, thank you so much for joining us today, Austin, and thank you everyone who joined us. We look forward to seeing you in Birmingham in September. Take care.